Everyone in the country knows about the thick winter fog that can swallow a city whole. In the biting cold, the landscape can look beautiful, almost ethereal. But within that cold, a dense fog can gather, a white blanket that smothers everything in sight. But what if that fog brings something with it? Something that can change your life forever. This is the story of Caleb and his friends. Caleb and his friends had grown sick of the city, of the choking pollution that stained the air and burned their lungs. They craved an escape, a single breath of clean mountain air. Together, they planned a trip to the remote Appalachian highlands. 3 days later, they hired a cab, and at 4 o'clock in the morning, under a starless sky, their trip began. Within moments, his easy laugh had made friends of them all. About 4 hours passed. It was 8 o'clock in the morning now, but the sky was still dark, heavy with an unnatural gloom. That's when everyone in the car saw it. Up ahead, stretched across the road, was a wall of dense white fog. It was so thick, so absolute, that the road simply vanished into it. Caleb noticed the driver, who had been laughing just moments before, had suddenly gone rigid. He was staring at the fog with a deadly seriousness, the color draining from his face. Caleb thought perhaps the driver was just nervous about driving in such poor visibility. He placed a hand on the man's shoulder. "Hey, don't worry about it," Caleb said reassuringly. "Just take it slow. We'll get through it." The driver turned and looked at Caleb, and his voice was a strained, trembling whisper. "I'm begging you, when we are inside the fog, please keep the windows closed. Do not open them, no matter what." The driver was so terrified that Caleb and his friends couldn't help but let out a nervous laugh. But the driver didn't smile. He told them that in this part of the country, fog like this never forms, and when it does appear, it brings with it a hunger, an illusion, a trick that preys on the mind. Caleb and his friends didn't believe him. They dismissed it as local superstition, a ghost story for tourists. And as they spoke, their car plunged into the wall of white. The blanket of fog was far thicker than they had imagined. The driver crawled the car forward, but no one could see a single thing beyond the hood. Suddenly Eliza, sitting in the back, felt a strange, crushing anxiety. It felt as if the air was being squeezed from her lungs. She couldn't breathe. Forgetting the driver's desperate warning, she slid the window down and stuck her head out just slightly. Cool air flooded her lungs, and she took a deep, shuddering breath of relief. But the fog had now crept inside the car. A few seconds later, when Eliza pulled her head back inside, her heart stopped dead in her chest. The car was still moving down the road, but she was completely alone. Caleb, Silas, and the driver, they were all gone, vanished. Her breath caught in her throat. The car was driving itself. She lunged for the door handle, trying to jump out, but the doors were locked. She pulled and pulled, but they wouldn't budge. She began to scream, her cries swallowed by the thick fog inside and out. Then, after a few moments that felt like an eternity, the car slowly rolled to a stop. The lock clicked open on its own. Without a second thought, Eliza threw the door open and ran out into the oppressive whiteness. She couldn't see anything, just the dense, suffocating fog in every direction. She screamed for help until her throat was raw, her heart hammering against her ribs so hard she thought it would burst. And that's when she saw it. In the distance, a dark silhouette. It looked like a very, very tall man. Sobbing with relief, Eliza ran towards the figure, crying out for help. But as she ran, she realized something was wrong. No matter how fast she ran, she never got any closer. The silhouette was always the same distance away, a phantom just beyond her reach. Before she could even try to understand, she felt it, a cold presence, standing directly behind her. She was so paralyzed with fear that she couldn't even find the courage to turn around. But she had to, forcing herself, her body shaking violently. Eliza turned, and her soul froze. Looming over her was a 12-foot-tall shadow, a void in the shape of a man, blacker than any night. As she stared up at it, trembling, she suddenly felt a violent, powerful shove from behind, and she fell down into darkness. Caleb, Silas, the driver, and Eliza were still in the car. The moment she had opened the window, she had fainted. As soon as she collapsed, the driver had yelled at Silas to shut the window immediately. Caleb and Silas were desperately trying to wake Eliza up, shaking her, calling her name. The driver was just muttering over and over again, his voice cracking with fear. She shouldn't have opened the window. She should never have opened the window. Caleb was starting to get angry. He thought the driver was ignoring a medical emergency, blaming it on some stupid superstition. All he wanted was to get out of this cursed fog and get Eliza to a hospital. "Just drive," he yelled at the driver. "Drive fast." The driver obeyed, slamming his foot on the accelerator. The car lurched forward, speeding blindly into the white abyss. But just a few seconds later, a figure appeared directly in the car's path. A girl. Moving at that speed, there was no time to stop. The car slammed into her with a sickening thud. The driver stopped the car. Caleb and Silas were breathless, their hearts frozen. Caleb immediately jumped out of the car to check on the girl. He saw her lying face down on the road, twisted and covered in blood. With trembling hands, Caleb turned her over to see her face, and his world shattered. The girl, lying broken and blood-soaked on the asphalt, was Eliza. Caleb couldn't comprehend it. It was impossible. Eliza was in the car with them. He spun around and looked back at the car. It was completely empty. Panic, absolute and primal, consumed him. He lifted Eliza's broken body from the road, placed her in the passenger seat, and jumped behind the wheel himself. He floored it, driving frantically into the fog, just needing to get away. And that's when the 12-foot-tall black shadow appeared directly in front of the speeding car. Caleb lost control. The steering wheel spun wildly in his hands, and the car veered off the road, crashing head-on into a massive tree. The next morning, their wrecked car was found. Inside were the driver, Caleb, Silas, and Eliza. They had all survived that night in the fog, but Caleb suffered a severe head injury, and his mind was shattered, lost forever in the illusions he'd seen. And Eliza was hit with a trauma so deep that now, everywhere she looks, she sees it. The tall black shadow, always watching from a distance. So the next time you find yourself driving in the fog, keep your windows